Good morning. Okay, I'd like to begin the agenda. We have items recommended for consent are items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. And I don't have any cards on those items. If there's no objection, I'm not sure whether we're going to get a quorum today, so we will hold those matters until closer to the end of the meeting, but I anticipate we will send those on as communication from the chair.
Okay.
With that,
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, did you want those items read into the record?
that's exactly what I want. You want to read them, or you want me to read them?
I'll let the CLA do that.
All right. Item number 1, Los Angeles Housing Department report and resolution and CAO to report relative to authorization to issue up to $4.85 million in tax-exempt multifamily mortgage revenue bonds for the Freeman Villa Apartments project. And this item is scheduled for council on May 15th, today. Item number 2 is LHD report and resolution and CAO report relative to authorization to issue up to $10 million in tax-exempt multifamily mortgage revenue bonds for the Banning Villa Apartments project. Item number 5 is motion Wesson Buscaino relative to item number 3. I skipped item number 3. Item number 3 is LHD and CAO report relative to authorization to accept settlement funds in the amount of $682,480 from a settlement agreement among attorneys general of 26 states and GE Funding Capital Market Services Incorporated related to certain guaranteed investment contracts provided by GEF CMS and its affiliates. And this item was also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee. Item number 5 is motion Wesson Buscaino relative to an instruction to the CAO to report with recommendations on the feasibility of establishing an Office of Civic Innovation in the city's new Economic Development Department to develop and promote innovative and entrepreneurial approaches to and processes for solving complex civic problems, including staffing, budgetary needs, and possible funding streams. Item number 7 is Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles reports relative to the impacts of federal sequestration on HACLA and the residents it serves. And this item was continued from the March 6th meeting.
Great job.
Pardon me, and on item number 2, that should be $10,100,000.
Okay. Did we say something different?
10 million was said.
Oh, okay. A minus.
And pardon me, Mr. Chair, but for item number 5, would you also like to refer that motion to the Ad Hoc Economic Development Implementation Committee?
Your suggestion I do that. Okay, let's do that. Great. That leaves us with item number 4.
Item number 4, LAHD CAO report relative to the LAHD's loan portfolio performance for program year 2011 to 2012.
Please.
Good morning, council members. Madeline Rackley with the CAO. In a transmittal dated September 24th, the Los Angeles Housing Department reported on the performance of their $1.1 billion loan portfolio for the period of April 1st through 2011 through March 31st through 2012. It included a description of income and loans and defaults and mitigation efforts. In their transmittal, they've attached several charts that describe all of those details. Based on what they have analyzed, the Housing Department requests authority to write off $2.5 million from 51 loans based on determinations made by the Housing Department that these amounts are uncollectible. Those loans are also explained in attachment 6 of their transmittal. The Housing Department also requests that the council and mayor adopt a policy regarding the disposition of real estate-owned or REO assets. Subsequent to this transmittal, the Housing Department provided additional information about the status of their loan portfolio and requested the establishment of a new asset protection account and transferring of funds into that account. The CAO recommends the approval of the LHD requests with the exception of the adoption of the REO disposition policy, which will be addressed in a separate report. And we would also recommend that the Housing Department continue to report annually on their loan portfolio.
Did you want to add anything?
No, sir, just here to answer questions.
Oh, okay. Mr. Weston, did you have any questions?
Yeah.
No questions. I don't have any questions. So we will put that in the pile of consent items since there are no cards on that item. And assuming if Ms. Perry comes, we'll consider them at the same time. But if she doesn't, we'll send them on with a communication from the chair.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item number 6, right? Is it 6?
Item number 8. Item number 8.
Number 8.
What about 6?
I have 2 item number 8, so I don't know what's going on.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. We have item 7. We have a speaker on item number 7. Did you want to
Okay,
take
which
that
one
item?
of these item number 8s is number 7?
We are.
This is, oh, I don't have 7. I don't have a 7. Oh, okay. We do have one card on item number 7, but do we have a report from the Housing Authority? No?
On item number 7, we have 2 reports from the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. Both reports are relative to federal sequestration.
Yeah, were you guys not aware of that, or? Oh, yeah. This is just a report on the impacts of sequestration.
Yes, Councilman, happy to report back on that. As you recall, the Housing Authority got hit very hard because of sequestration, both on the operational side of things at the Housing Authority, but I think very importantly, the impact that it has on the subsidies we're providing through our Section 8 program. We had initially issued a report saying that the way we intended to approach that was to spread those sorts of reductions across the board with our Section 8 voucher holders by reducing the amount of subsidy over the course of the coming months to be able to address that issue of sequestration. That still remains the formal position that we have on that, but we've been working with HUD quite a bit back and forth in Washington in seeing if there isn't a way that we can minimize the impacts on sequestration. We are hopeful that HUD will be issuing some regulations here very shortly which will allow us to compete for some special set-aside money combined with some other approaches that would allow us to not have such an immediate impact upon all the Section 8 voucher holders, but would more likely result in us just freezing Section 8 going forward for the balance of the year as a way to addressing this significant shortfall. So we're still working with HUD on what the ultimate solution of addressing these shortfalls is going to be.
Talk about the length of sequestration. Can go for 9 or 10 years.
Well, Eric was just suggesting a sequestration as it's currently structured is a 10-year sequestration, just so we all recognize that. And, of course, a lot of the discussion in Washington, D.C. is it's got to get fixed. We don't want to deal with the current sequestration legislation in place for a 10-year period of time. So there are the larger budget discussions that have to take place both for the 2014 budget. We have, of course, the U.S. government is looking at the debt ceiling issue that Congress has to deal with. Looks like now it's going to be sometime this fall. So again, we're kind of at the mercy of the actions taken in D.C., but we're in very close contact with HUD in trying to figure out the best way to manage through these particular challenges.
Do you have any anticipation of when we will never have to hear this word again? I mean, I never heard that. I still don't understand exactly how they're using this word, but I've never despised the word so much. It's just, it's always so bad. But do you have any idea when we're getting piecemeal action on this as we go? Is that not correct?
Yes, HUD, we had put in a request for a waiver which would have allowed us to address this the way we had been suggesting in the past. HUD has not approved any waivers around the country, and they're trying to, again, find out a path forward that minimizes the impact as they see it in a consistent way. They have a small pot of money nationally for set-aside funding to deal with emergencies to make sure that nobody loses their housing. And we're in discussions with them of really applying for and getting a piece of that. I expect before the end of this month they'll have a more formal directive out on that.
Yeah, but do you have any anticipation that we'll actually have a complete budget?
Well, we won't have a complete budget. We've already suffered significantly on the operational side for this year, a combination of budget cutbacks in the continuing resolution coupled with sequestration. We're now being funded at the lowest operational levels in the history of the program, both for Section 8 as well as public housing. So we have suffered significantly on the operational side, both in some layoffs, freezing of positions. We're all on furloughs at this point at the Housing Authority to get us through the balance of this year. And we're now starting to prepare for the unknown of the 2014 budget.
Okay. Any questions, Ms. Watson? No. Okay, I have one card on this item. Fernando Gaitan from the Legal Aid Foundation.
Good morning, Councilman Alarcon. Fernando Gaitan with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, and thank you. I'm going to be very brief here. I was asked to comment on the report, and I realize it's only a report, but I'm here to tell you that HACLA has really reached out to advocates in the community to really try to come up with good solutions, and I'm encouraged by that open dialogue that they're having, and I hope we can continue that to come up with some possible alternatives to these cuts. Already, Legal Aid, as well as our sister organization, Neighborhood Legal Services, sees the most amounts of unlawful detainers from indigent tenants in the city. We've already seen the spike in the number of evictions for failure to pay rent, just unable to afford rent, as you can imagine, due to the recession. Our concern, of course, is that as the report indicates, tenants left in the situation where their payment standards can be lowered are left with the Hobson's choice of either moving, finding a more affordable place, which there's a dearth of affordable housing in the city of Los Angeles. That's going to be very difficult to do, or ask their landlord to lower the rent. Either way, they're placed in a very difficult position. We, again, are encouraged by HACLA's reaching out to us. We hope that there's some alternative to cutting these vouchers that can be conceived somehow in the near future, but we hope that this dialogue continues.
Well, thank you. Okay, well, receive and file that, or
Note and file.
what are we doing?
Note and file.
Note and file. Okay. After 20 years, don't know whether it's note and file or receive and file. What is the difference?
The difference between note and file, receive and file is an item that
When you receive it, you don't note it?
generally, no, it's usually a receive and file is a item that is outdated, or it's the items are something that no action needs to occur on.
Okay.
A note and file is something where it's an item with information that the committee and council need to take note of, and then they can go ahead and file that after that.
20 years. You learn something every day. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to, we will note and file that, and then we have one final item. That's item number 8, right?
My apologies. We do have number 6 and number 8.
Okay. Then let's do number 6. What is 6?
Yes.
Well, we have Hackla up here right now. So 6 was moved on consent? You read it, right?
Not yet. Would you like me
Well, you
to?
didn't read it. Oh, okay.
Item number 6 is communication from the mayor and CEO report relative to authorization to amend a contract with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps in support of the Mayor's Office of Gang Reduction and Youth Development 2013 Summer Night Lights Program, accept funds from HACLA in support of SNL programs in 2013-2014, and appropriate fiscal year 2012-13 funds to the Department of Recreation Parks in support of SNL 2013 and related actions. And I've been informed that subsequent to the agenda being released, that this item was approved to be scheduled for City Council on Friday, May 17th.
Yes, and do we have any amendments on that? No? Okay. Any questions? No cards on that item? Did you want to make any comments on that? Yeah, you're not required to, but...
Good morning. So the Summer Night Lights program this year, we are aligning it with the school calendar, so it is starting June 26. Usually we start July 4th.
Oh, I see.
So we're asking to amend, we're requesting authority to amend the LACC contract from April 1st, 2013 to March 31st in order to be able to pay for all the hirings, youth programs, et cetera, that have to be done. We do have to train folks, so the timing this year is a little bit different.
Okay, was that included in the report? Or is this a new amendment?
No. This
No,
was-
what?
This was included in the
This is in
mayor's
the
report.
So we're not actually amending the report?
No.
Okay. It's in there. Anything else on this item? And without objection, that will be a communication from the committee? Yeah. And,
For number 6, we would, it's recommended that we said earlier that one was on consent, so.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
On number 6, we said earlier that that one was on consent, so that one was already,
Oh, it was on
Dealt with.
consent, yeah, of course. So let's move all items on consent to council with recommendation for approval.
and the last one is item number 8.
Item number 8,
Um,
okay. Thank
Item
you.
number 8 is HACLA and CAO reports relative to request by HACLA and the city to waive payment in lieu of taxes to the city in the amount of $4.054 million to provide funds for programs at HACLA public housing sites and to fund the transition of certain city recreation services to nonprofit organizations. And this item was also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
She's going to say that.
Council members, Madeline Rackley again with the CAO. Subsequent to our last meeting, the Housing Authority submitted a modified request to distribute the payment in lieu of taxes funds. The new amount is for $2 million for city programs and recreational services. I believe you have a copy of the report, but what you don't have would be the recommendations from the CAO, and I'm happy to read those now or whenever you would like to. But if you would like the Housing Authority to talk about what's in that report, they can do that, and then I'm here to read those recommendations.
Okay, but you're okay with the recommendations?
Yes, but their report does actually not include city recommendations. So even if you adopted their report, nothing would happen. So, so you need those CAO recommendations
Okay.
to take action.
But, okay, if we could have Hackla...
Sure, if they can make a presentation, and I can read my notes.
She has to read it into the record.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, we were here before the committee and asked to take another look at the pilot budget, which we've since done. So the budget that we're presenting here is just for the year 2013. It's not a 2-year budget. The total amount for 2013 is $2,087,000. And the components of what's being recommended for pilot remain the same. It's the Summer Night Lights program at 4 different sites that we've historically funded out of pilot for $500,000. It's a summer youth employment program that is it's very important to the residents at the Housing Authority for $640,000. And then the balance of the funds are targeted for recreational purposes. We're attempting to go through a transition in our different recreational centers because of a diminution in funding for recs and parks to fund the centers that they always have. We're transitioning some of these centers out. So the budget before you provides for us to continue transition at Pico Gardens and Ramona Gardens, and then it provides additional funding for recs and parks. That, coupled with funds that are under consideration before the full City Council of general funds, would complete a full budget to continue the ongoing recreational and park services at Jordan Downs, Imperial Courts, and Nickerson Gardens. Then finally, we've got a summer recreational program for 2 other major sites that aren't served with on-site facilities by Recs and Parks for San Fernando Gardens and for William Mead Homes. So that's the budget before you that we've been working with all parties involved to put this together to be able to move it forward.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for working with my staff to help us figure this out. I wasn't quite understanding the pilot project. And I only wish that we could get some recreational funds into the other 6 that are not included. Even though I understand that you're focusing on those areas that have recreational facilities, I still think the other areas need more activity, but I'm glad that we were able to take care of Mead and San Fernando Gardens, obviously. So with that, you wanted to read the final recommendations?
Unfortunately, I
on the
have to
record?
do this, and I apologize, but there it goes. So these would be the revised recommendations for this council file. Number 1, note and file the report from the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles, HACLA, dated February 20th. 2013. We're smarter now than we were 10 minutes ago. And the report from the City Administrative Officer dated April...
It would actually be correct to receive and file that.
Okay, then receive and file. Fine. I don't understand the rules, clearly.
But I feel a lot better.
All right. So we're receiving and filing those 2 reports. Number 2, approve the waiver of the HACLA payment in lieu of taxes pilot as described in the request from HACLA dated May 13, 2013, totaling $2,087,000. Recommendation 3, approve the following pilot fund expenditure plan and direct HACLA to allocate the accrued $2 million in pilot funds to the following expenditures: Summer Youth Employment Program, $640,000, Summer Night Lights Program, $500,000, Recreation and Parks Programs, $572,000, Recreation Center Startup Costs, $225,000, Summer Recreation Programs in Council Districts 1 and 7, $150,000. 4, authorize the Executive Director of HACLA or designee to expend up to $640,000 directly for the Summer Youth Employment Program and request the Executive Director of HACLA to report to Council every 6 months on the status of that program. 5, authorize the Director of the Mayor's Office of Gain Reduction and Youth Development or GRID or designee to accept $500,000 from HACLA for the Summer Night Lights Program at Ramona Gardens, Jordan Downs, Imperial Courts, and Nickerson Gardens, and to prepare controller instructions relative to the appropriation and expenditure of these funds that are consistent with this action, subject to the approval of the CAO, and authorize the controller to implement the instructions. Recommendation 6, authorize the General Manager of the Department of Recreation and Parks or designee to accept $572,000 from HACLA to reimburse the general fund for recreation and maintenance services provided by Recreation and Parks at Pico Gardens, Ramona Gardens, Jordan Downs, Imperial Courts, and Nickerson Gardens. Instruct Recreation and Parks to deposit such funds as a general fund receipt and authorize the controller to recognize such funds as a general fund receipt. Recommendation number 7, authorize the city clerk or designee to A, accept $75,000 from HACLA to reimburse the general fund to supplement summer program recreation services at the William Meade Housing Development in Council District 1. Instruct the city clerk to deposit such funds as a general fund receipt on behalf of Council District 1, and authorize the city clerk to recognize such funds as a general fund receipt on behalf of Council District 1. And B, accept $75,000 from HACLA to reimburse the general fund to supplement summer program recreation services at the San Fernando Gardens Housing Development in Council District 7. Instruct the city clerk to deposit such funds as a general fund receipt on behalf of Council District 7, and authorize the city clerk to recognize such funds as a general fund receipt on behalf of Council District 7. And finally, the last recommendation, number 8, is to authorize the General Manager of Recreation and Parks, the Director of the Mayor's Grid Office, and the City Clerk or designees to prepare controller instructions for any technical adjustments that may be required and are consistent with this action, subject to the approval of the CAO, and authorize the controller to implement the instructions.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to make an amendment to the CAO's report on the $75,000. She's asking to deposit into general fund. If we do that, then we won't be able to administer your programs. We would do that with HACLA. If it goes to the general fund, then we won't have any control over administering those programs, and I don't know what department would do that. Our department will administer those programs. HACLA would administer those
Okay,
programs.
then we can, the CAO is fine with amending that. Then the funds would actually just stay in HACLA and then would be distributed for programs via HACLA. We can amend that. Nothing, we would just take out then
the
recommendation
technical
number
language
7.
The money stays in
The
HACLA.
money stays in HACLA, so take out recommendation 7 and we're cool.
Take out recommendation 7?
And that way the money stays with HACLA, if that's what you would like to do.
No, that's not what I want.
HACLA will commit to
I know
provide
that takes
services.
care of you.
No.
Where is it? Oh, we have it in item 3. Okay, so that's, the 150,000 is in lieu of taxes, okay.
Right.
Okay, got it.
But we will administer those programs for you.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah, because if that goes in,
Yeah, okay, great.
So is there an amendment, or you would like to take out recommendation 7?
I think because the allocation is included in item 3, I think we're covered there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Okay, so we will,
Council member, may I ask, Regina? The Recreation and Parks Department may have the same concern on recommendation number 6.
Good morning, Councilmember Regina Adams, Executive Officer, Recreation and Parks. I was just making the same comment to Maddie from the CAO's office. HACLA plays on Department of Recreation and Parks directly, so it's not necessary for it to be go through the general fund.
So it would be the same
Oh.
principle. It's covered in recommendation number 3.
It will be shown as a direct revenue from the HACLA.
yeah, do we have to have some kind of action to receive it, though?
No, they would do as they've done in the past with Recreation and Parks. This is fine. We can take out 6 as well.
Wait,
The way it's set up right now,
I think we just delete the, to reimburse the general fund.
correct.
Right.
We'll be fine. So we're keeping number 6, but we're deleting to reimburse the general fund. And then it reads, authorize general manager of the Department of Rec and Parks or designee to accept $570,000 from HACLA for recreation and maintenance services.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, as amended? Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't have any cards on this item, then it would be a communication from the chair to approve the CAO's recommendations as amended. Correct? Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have public comment. We have Adriana Vicanin? Vicanin, okay. Sure.
Hi, I'm just here to announce the formation of a political action committee that is pushing a ballot initiative that will be submitted within the next few weeks that will save affordable housing units in the city of LA. Due to loopholes in current law, developers are able to get rid of affordable housing units through various measures, and this ballot initiative will make sure that that developments, apartment complexes, if they are being converted into condominiums, that the same amount of units will stay in that building. Because the law hasn't been working for low-income residents in this city, we are going to change the law. We have lawyers, organizations, and people who are currently in the works on putting this together and organizing. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll keep our eyes out for it. Angelina Jimenez?
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Solamente les vengo a preguntar algo. Hace tiempo yo me fui a quejar al City Hall de que la ciudad se queja de que no hay inspectores, de que no hay fondos para los inspectores. Entonces, yo creo que sí hay dinero, porque hubo una idea de multar a los bancos por dejar las casas abandonadas, por dejarlas llenas de basura.
Right, so Ms. Angelina is talking about how the city has talked about lack of funding for housing inspection to check up on foreclosed and blighted properties, and she says that there is money, that this money can be collected by fining the banks $1,000 a day for having these properties in these conditions.
Hasta el momento se acordó de que se iba a multar $1,000 por día a los bancos. Y hasta ahorita, ya ha pasado más de un año, no se ha multado, pero lo que es un centavo.
So in more than a year, the city hasn't collected 1 cent of fines from the banks for having homes in these conditions.
¿Hasta cuándo la ciudad va a seguir pagando por esto en lugar de los bancos?
So her question is, until when is the city going to stop paying for this instead of the banks? When are the banks going to start paying for the damage they've caused?
Les quiero contar algo cortito. Yo tengo una casa al lado de la mía. Entonces yo pongo mi carro, mi hijo pone su carro. Estamos cuidando esa casa que está reposeída por el banco.
So she says she lives next to a foreclosed home, and her son have to look after the home because she doesn't want the same thing to happen to that home in terms of blight, people breaking in, things of that sort.
Lo hacemos para cuidar la comunidad, no cuidar al banco.
We do this to protect our community, not to protect the banks.
Porque hay mucha gente que se mete a esas casas que están abandonadas y las destruyen, hasta las han quemado, y los únicos que perdemos somos los ciudadanos.
She said there's been incidences in which people have broken into these homes, damaged the homes, have even burned these homes, and the only ones affected by these incidents are community members, not banks.
Y esa es sola mi pregunta, ¿hasta cuándo la ciudad va a seguir pagando en lugar de los bancos?
So her question is, when is the city going to do something about this?
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Madeline, do you know if your report on the $1,000 fine is going to be ready this month?
I'm sorry, Councilmember, say that again. I didn't.
Do you know when your report on the $1,000 fine is going to be ready?
Let me find out today, and I will get back to your staff, because I don't know off the top of my head what that is. The CLA has not released its report on the foreclosure registry system, so until they release their report, we don't really have an idea when our report will be done. But let me find out today, and I will get back to your staff. But it is an issue that we are aware of, and we will address.
Okay, we can't get into...
No. Yeah, but let me get back to your staff today, and we'll figure it out.
Okay, let me just say that during public comment, we can't respond in great detail because it's not on the agenda. It would be a violation of the Brown Act. But I can say that it is something we are tracking, and also I know that the Coalition of Unions is making it an issue as part of the budget consideration. So it will very much be a topic of consideration for the council.
We'll get back.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, I can't read the last name. It looks like, oh yes, it's Stephanie, I'm sorry. I didn't have my glasses on. Stephanie,
Lane.
oh, it's Lane, okay.
Sorry, my director wrote my name down. I'm from Good Jobs LA. I'm here for the same reason that our allies were speaking about from ACE. So I won't go over a lot of what she said, but we've been waiting a year for these amendments to come back to committee. And I'm glad that already there's some movement to figure out where the foreclosure registry enforcement amendments are. We know we were here in December when the first part of the amendments to change the registry, so every bank had to pay for registration, has already started, and according to a recent DBS report on budgeting that came out recently, they said they had $2 million in the registry account. And we just want to say, look, there's still no staff on this project. We know that the foreclosure crisis is abating in a lot of parts of the city, but in a lot of communities, it's still a crisis. And we know, we're just a few years away, possibly from another housing crisis or another bubble. So we really urge you, and thank you for your support to really to move this to committee again, so we can get this process started and get this program working to serve the communities of LA that need it. And we really ask you to get the city to move and get the staff really working on this, so we can.
Thank you.
We don't have to wait any longer. Thanks.
I'll do what I can in the next 46 days. I have a card here. I just want to show it. It doesn't have a name on it, but it's a very nice card. So if somebody wants to complete it, if I don't call your name and you thought you had a card in, you forgot to put your name on it. So you can certainly complete it if you want. James Johnson?
Good morning, Chairman. It's always good to see you. Thank you for your service. I was actually the person that last week in the presentation of the coalition's budget recommendations, I actually made the presentation related to blight. It's something that I've been working on for the last 6 months to a year, trying to figure out and detangle. And while I've been engaged in politics in this town for close to 30 years, I still struggle to try to untangle the morass of bureaucracy in the city as it relates to moving things forward. I get an email at least once a week, usually by Friday morning, to see if a report related to the foreclosure registry ordinance has been released. I contact folks, staff on council, to see where things are. Folks don't know where it is. It says that it's something related now to lining up the budget piece on the positions to what the authorization is. the bottom line is that this is a crisis that is still going on in the communities that there's always crises in, and we know where those districts are, we know where those communities are. We're trying to be proactive. We're not in this to try to jam up anybody. We're simply trying to jam up these banks that have not done their job. The CAO and others we know have met with the banks time and time again. We don't know what the holdup is. We don't know if it's about politics. We don't know if it's about bureaucracy. But the bottom line is that we've left millions of dollars on the table that these banks should be paying, and reality is now we're going to try to pick up the rest of it, but we can't pick up the rest of it until there's a report and there's action by the policymakers that run the city. Thank you.
Magdalena Sierra?
Buenos días.
Morning.
Yo ya había venido a hablar anteriormente aquí al City Hall, ya hace un año de la ordenanza que dieron para que los bancos pagaran $1,000 por día, por cada casa que recogieran. Ok, es mucho peligro una casa abandonada que el banco ha recogido. Aparte del peligro de la basura, de todo, es refugio de maleantes, gente que vende droga, malas casas que están cerca de las escuelas, es un peligro para nuestra niñez. Eso debe de parar, por favor, porque yo he visto cómo los que venden droga están involucrando a niños para vender drogas y para hacerlos adictos a la droga. Eso es un grande peligro. Y eso va contra nuestra niñez. Yo les pido de favor que hagan algo para parar esto, porque ya el crimen en donde yo vivo está a la orden del día. Todo por las casas que ha recogido el banco y por los malos que venden droga, están haciendo de la suya en las casas que recoge el banco.
Right. So her name is Magdalena Sierra. She lives in a community with plenty of foreclosed homes. She was here more than a year ago in terms of the foreclosure ordinance in which banks should be fined $1,000 a day for keeping these homes in these bad conditions. And she says since she's seen the increase in foreclosures in her neighborhood, a lot of these homes have been broken into by drug dealers who have employed youngsters and children in this drug trade and have made them addicts. A lot of these homes are also close to nearby schools and affect our communities in very dangerous forms. And she says this is affecting the future of our children in these communities and in the city of Los Angeles in general. And when is the city going to do something about this, to address this issue?
A mí lo que me duele son los niños, porque es el futuro de este país. Yo por eso vengo a hablar y a pedirles, por favor, que tratemos de parar esto. Yo estoy tratando con la policía, pero no es lo suficiente. A mí los niños es lo que me preocupa.
So she says what worries her most is how the youth are being affected by this, because the youth, the children, are the future of our nation. She says she's tried to work with the police department in terms of addressing these issues, but that's not enough. The city needs to move to do something about this.
Y yo hablo en español y vengo a hablar en español porque quiero que mi gente sepa lo que estoy hablando, mi gente de habla hispana, y sepa y se enseñe a defenderse, que ya no permitan más fraude y más abuso.
So I come here to speak in Spanish because I'm here to represent Spanish-speaking community members in Los Angeles to show that we do know how to defend ourselves, to not take this abuse anymore.
Okay. Okay.
Sherry Hernandez?
Hi, I'm Sherry Hernandez, and what she said, okay? I'm from Rancho Palos Verdes, and I can still tell you what she said. I have been 7 years fighting with the banks, with the bad lenders, first for their fraudulent practices, and they held us to a contract we didn't agree to. We proved it in a court of law, and we have won our case in part and settled in part, and yet still they're allowed to foreclose on us. Countrywide Home Loans has reopened with all the same executives as PennyMac, and they filed false documents with the recorder's office. And I tried to get the documents out because I have the proof that they are not legitimate. And yet there's nothing I can do. There has to be a way to get those documents out, because now they're using them and they foreclosed on our home, which they are not entitled to. Not only that, we made a settlement with Countrywide for our second, in which they wrote it off, and I already just today got a letter from a new servicer that I called and says they want us to pay them on a loan that has been written off, because these documents that are filed with the assessor's office are fraudulent. They're not backed up by assignments, and so they get assigned and reassigned. Part of our battle with B of A was we had 5 different servicers telling us that we had 2 different investors, and we had to fight that one out completely. And now on our second, we fought with Countrywide. Now they managed to send us back to PennyMac. And PennyMac, I'm fighting. They have a lot of fraudulent stuff going on. I've written to the Department of Corporations. But how egregious can it be when the commissioner of the Department of Corporations, the former commissioner of the Department of Corporations, is now trustee for PennyMac? So how can the homeowners get the justice we need? How can we avail ourselves of the homeowner's Bill of Rights and get those documents out of the recorder's office that don't belong there? Thank you.
Thank you. Foreclosure crisis is still in our midst, and we have a lot more work to do. But as I said, I can't really say a whole lot about it because this is public comment. It's not on the agenda, and we're essentially prohibited from engaging on the subject. But we can provide information, which is what I did. So with that, and I'll also instructed my staff to put the report on the next agenda for the HCD committee, whether the report is written or not. Okay, so we'll have a hearing on it. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.